Hello all. Today I am starting a new initiative. In this initiative, one by one, we'll talk about each and every country in the world that plays some significant role in the international relations. First, we'll start with Sri Lanka because it is one of the neighboring countries of India. And slowly, after covering the neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, China, and all, we'll start moving region wise, like with the Middle East, with the Central Asia, with the Eastern Europe, with the Northern America, and so on and so forth. So as for our today's agenda, let us start with Sri Lanka. So, as you all might be knowing, that Sri Lanka is an island country in South Asia. If you can imagine India's map, Sri Lanka lies in the bottom, on the southwestern side of the Bay of Bengal part, and it looks like a teardrop. So that's why popularly sometimes it is also known as teardrop of India. What are the key properties or key features of Sri Lanka that plays critical role in its international relations with the world, especially India? The geography of Sri Lanka is mostly comprising of coastal plains, and the mountains are rising only in the south central part. Sri Lanka has a long coastline of 1585 km and it claims a very big exclusive economic zone area of 200 nautical miles, which is approximately 6.7 times Sri Lanka's land area. The coastline and the adjacent waters support highly productive marine species, marine ecosystem such as fringing coral reefs and shallow beds of coastal and estuary seagrasses. The Sri Lanka's environment also has a vast span of mangrove ecosystem that acts as a buffer in natural disasters like tsunami. For example, the Indian tsunami that happened in the year 2004. Now, one thing that is very critical in international relations is the resources. Nowadays, countries are fighting for resources. As from resources point of view, if you see, the island country of Sri Lanka is rich in minerals such as graphite, silica, mica, thorium, feldspar. Further existence of petroleum and gases in the Gulf of Mannar region has also been confirmed, and the extraction of recoverable quantities is underway. So you can understand from the resources point of view, certain minerals and oil and natural gas can be found in and near Sri Lanka, and that increases significance of Sri Lanka in the international relations. Further, if you see, Sri Lanka lies at a very strategic point in the Indian Ocean region. A majority of trade in the Indian Ocean region gets supported by Sri Lanka, making it a right candidate as a trade hub in the region. Now, it is also interesting to learn that as a country, how is Sri Lanka envisioning itself in the world order? So let me simplify this vision for you under certain categories. As we already know from earlier discussion that Sri Lanka is positioning itself economically as the hub of the Indian Ocean region. And how they are planning to do that? They are planning to build infrastructure and increase trade and investment relation with other countries so that they can soon become a hub in the Indian Ocean region. Further, economically, Sri Lanka also wants to promote the tourism industry, which in the past and in the future can be a major contributor in its economy. Now, moving ahead from the economic perspective, let us see the political vision of the country. Politically, Sri Lanka aims to be a such country that has good diplomatic relationship with the other countries. Sri Lanka want to play an active role in the region and also at the international organizations. In the past, Sri Lanka have shown and has been actively engaged in promoting peace in the region. So now taking forward from the political vision of Sri Lanka, let us also look at the cultural aspect which Sri Lanka envisions itself in the world of international relations. Culturally, Sri Lanka wants to be known for its rich culture and heritage, as can be observed from its ancient Buddhist temples, diverse cuisine, and traditional arts, including dance and music. Just to summarize, we can simply say that in the international arena, Sri Lanka has a multifaceted vision in which it aims to be recognized for its economic growth, political stability, and cultural heritage. Now, I'll try to present a baseline that will give an idea that how Sri Lanka manages its international relation with other countries. Obviously, in international world, there will be some countries that you will have a poor relationship with, and there will be few countries that you will have great relationship with. Because as a country, you will have different interests, and you cannot satisfy every country while fulfilling your people's aspirations. So, keeping a note of that, let us start learning about certain countries with which Sri Lanka has good relations. So, one is obviously China. China in the past have been one of the closest allies of Sri Lanka because of its investment capabilities. China invested a lot in its infrastructure, for example, the Hambantota port and the Colombo port city. This has given Sri Lanka a huge infrastructural advantage in the Indian Ocean region. Moving ahead, we will see Japan. Japan has also been a significant donor to Sri Lanka. Japan has provided several financial and technical assistance to Sri Lanka in its development projects. And further, following the civil war in Sri Lanka that ended in 2009, Japan supported the promotion of peace and stability in the region by supporting the reconciliation efforts. Russia has also been a cooperative partner of Sri Lanka, especially in the security and the defense domain, where it helps Sri Lanka in countering terrorism and regional security issues. Russia has also provided Sri Lanka with military aid and training. Now, moving ahead from Russia, we have certain Middle Eastern countries, including the Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the Qatar. So, these Middle Eastern countries have invested heavily in Sri Lanka in several sectors, including tourism, real estate, and infrastructure. So, this being the key sectors in Sri Lanka's economy, have helped Sri Lanka has helped Sri Lanka in achieving its vision in the world order. Now, the very next in the list is the obviously ASEAN countries, countries including Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. These countries have signed several agreements with Sri Lanka to promote trade and investment in the country. And there have been efforts by these Asian countries to enhance cultural and people to people exchanges, which in a way promotes the social relation of Sri Lanka with the Southeast Asian nation. So you might be wondering, how is Sri Lanka's relation with India? So actually, it is not bad and not good. Exactly 2 years back, Sri Lanka's relation with India was not that great because Sri Lanka felt that India is interfering too much in its management of relation with the Tamil minority groups, and India has also been concerned because of Chinese influence in the country. This has kept the relation at bay for a good amount of time, and there was little bit of divergence in the interest of both the countries. But recently, after Sri Lanka faced a huge economic crisis post COVID-19 pandemic, which has halted its tourism industry and the ever mounting debt that Sri Lanka was facing, India came to the rescue and supported Sri Lanka's plan to recover from this economic crisis by backing up Sri Lanka in getting loan from IMF and also extending the line of credit to Sri Lanka to carry out the reconstruction work and further helping Sri Lanka in acquiring the currency swap agreement so that the country doesn't face much of the difficulties in managing its foreign exchanges, which has caused country a huge economic crisis some few months back. So in a way, you can see India's relation with Sri Lanka is balanced, positive points in the economic side and negative points in the internal matters. So if India can balance these two issues in a way that doesn't hurt Sri Lanka's interest, then this international relation, which is more than 2,500 years old, can move another 1,000 years without any difficulty. Now, obviously, as we have seen that there are certain countries that have good relation with Sri Lanka, there will obviously certain countries that have poor relations with Sri Lanka. And these countries majorly include the Western countries like US, UK, and Canada. These are the countries that are more concerned about Sri Lanka's way of handling the minorities, including the Tamils and the Muslims. So these people are keep on claiming on Sri Lanka's way of treating this minority group, and this has irritated Sri Lanka a lot in the past. And further, the bans and freezes caused by Western countries like Canada and interference of UK in this matter of civil war in Sri Lanka has kept Sri Lanka concerned about the real intent and interest of these Western powers, and thus resulted in having not such great relation with them. So now let us discuss about the final theme of today: is the current challenges that Sri Lanka faces that is hampering what it envisions itself in this international world. So let me simplify these challenges for you under different heads. First, we'll talk about the economic challenges. So economically, as you know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the biggest contributor of Sri Lanka's economy, the tourism sector, struggled a lot, and this has caused Sri Lanka a lot of trouble in foreign exchanges terms. This has further given rise to Sri Lanka's burdens, which are already mounting up due to a lot of debt that Sri Lanka has taken for its infrastructural development in the past from countries like China and many others. Further, this, accompanied by slower growth and rising inflation, has created a more economic crisis-like situation that we also discussed about earlier. So, if you see one big challenge that is in front of Sri Lanka as of now, is its economic debt. So, as soon as possible, Sri Lanka is able to come over its economic crisis by overcoming its debt, the faster it will move to achieve its vision, and thus also promising peace and growth in the region. Now, if you see politically, the biggest challenge in Sri Lanka politically is that there is a lot of political instability. You might be remembering the time a few months back when Sri Lanka's prime minister had to resign and had to run away in a way. The president took over the charge and gain the international confidence to bring country back from the brink. So such political instability has been common in Sri Lanka from very long, but because of different reasons, like the civil wars, which was for 26 years long, maybe that has caused the biggest trouble to Sri Lanka's political stability. So now looking at the social challenges that the country is facing, there has been indications of inequality, poverty, and social exclusion in the country. Further, discrimination against the minorities like the Tamils and the Muslims have been a persistent issue in the country. This has led to multiple tensions and a certain incidents of violence, which is in a way is hampering the social fabric of the nation. Now, if we look from the environment perspective, as we know that climate change has left no one, especially the island countries. Sri Lanka, being an island nation located in the Indian Ocean region, is always at the brunt of climate change. The country has already started experiencing extreme weather conditions such as floods and droughts. Further challenges like deforestation, soil erosion, and water and air pollution are causing much of the trouble for the Sri Lankan nation. Now, one another big challenge that Sri Lanka as a nation faces is allegations of human rights violation, as mostly alleged by the Western countries, because there have been reports of extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, and allegations of torture. In addition to that, concerns over shrinking space of civil society organizations and media, with restrictions on freedom of speech and expression and assembly, has caused a much of a concern to Sri Lanka from the Western countries. So, with all this information, we as a learner of foreign policy and international relations will be able to understand Sri Lanka's interest in different world scenario, and if not, we'll at least be able to get a foundational understanding that if there is anything happening in the world that might affect Sri Lanka, then what it can be. So let me leave you with this thought now, and let us connect some other day with such information about another country and their vision interest in the world order. Till then, bye bye.